Welcome to the Real Estate Real Success podcast, where we talk about key business successes and lessons learned along the way in the hopes of inspiring brokerage owners and managers to find new ways of doing business. I'm Chiyoko Kakino, and in this episode, we are going to talk about the opportunity to build your brokerage organically and through acquisition. So I am super lucky to be joined by Stephen Chow. Not only is he a friend of mine, but he is the broker owner of Century 21 Atria, headquartered in Toronto, Ontario. Stephen, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, Chico. Hi, everybody online. Thank you for the invite.
Excellent. So, Stephen, I want to start off by giving our listeners a little bit about your background. So you started in real estate in 1996 and 97, and you were quite the productive realtor, I understand, at that time. Yeah. In 2004, you decided to start your own brokerage with Century 21. And when you started it, it was basically yourself and your support staff, of course. And you continued to sell real estate until 2012/2013, when you realized you needed to make a big decision. But before we talk about what that big decision was, I have to ask, why did you start your own brokerage? Like, what were you thinking at that time?
Oh, that's a very great question. Honestly, I didn't know what I was thinking. I was in my mid-20s. I was a very, very successful realtor, and I thought I knew everything. And I'm like, you know what? I don't need to work for someone. I like to be my own boss. So I'm like, you know what? Let me go open a company and be my own boss. And being a typical, I think a lot of owners think this way when they first start up, is I don't have to pay fees to my boss. It was never my intention to grow this company. It was really just for, hey, I continue to sell with a couple of team members and own a company for myself. That was the intention to start off with.
Right. So at a young age, you were an entrepreneur. So that's great. So that was 2004 when you decided to open your own brokerage. Let's fast forward now to 2012, 2013, which was really a turning point for you. Can you tell us why it was such an important time in your career?
By the time I was like in 2012, I was a really top producer in the Century 21 family, and even in Toronto. I think at the peak of 2012, I was ranked number 11 in the country by production. So I was very, very productive. But I started to have agents throughout the years, a few years of having a brokerage. You start to have your friends, your buddies saying, Stephen, can I join your company? So we started having people to join. And then all of a sudden you have to have a little bit more overhead, right? You have to hire a little bit, couple more support staff, the front desk go to answer calls. But I was at the point that, you know what, I don't know how to run a brokerage, but I was very, very successful at selling. So it got to the point that I had to decide, like, do I want to be an owner or do I want to be a salesperson? Because the company was not doing well, right? I didn't know how to operate a company. And it was like a decision, what should I do in my life? So around 2012, I kind of took a few months to evaluate my own situation financially and the business side as well. And say, you know what? Maybe I should give it a try to be a full-time owner, right? The company's now 8 years into it, but it was really not a big brokerage. Maybe I should give it a try and learn how to be a real estate broker owner, because I think it's different hats, right? Like I actually never worked in another job in my life. I got my license when I was like in university. So I always was self-employed doing this. And it's like, you know what? How do I become an owner? Obviously, there's no real manual to learn, but it's great from head office that they're teaching me. But I think everything is you have to learn on your own. You have to learn on the fly. So I'm like, you know what? Let me figure out my situation. How can I transition out and be a full-time owner? Or should I sell the company and just focus on being a realtor? But reminding you at this point, this company is probably worth nothing, right? I'll be lucky if someone pays me $1,000 to buy my company. So that was kind of 2012. And in 2013, mid-2013, I decided, you know what, I really want to take the transition. And in 2013, I decided to stop selling real estate. I think that was the most difficult part. You're having a very good income as a salesperson. And to become an owner now, a full-time owner, which you don't know what to do, right? And you had to learn everything, but you have no income coming in. Right? You didn't really have agents giving you a split to help you operate from your day-to-day operations. So I think that was the biggest turning point, and that was the start of what I really think is really the beginning of the company.
Wow. You know, and you're right, that transition must be so tough because you're making a lot of money on one side and then you're having to forgo all of that to start in some ways from scratch, right? And as you say, it's kind of, you had to learn how to become a brokerage owner. It's very similar to the restaurant industry where they say sometimes, there's lifetime servers because it's hard to go, like they always have cash at the end of the night, right? So it's hard for them to transition out of serving into something else because they're so used to that income coming in, right? That cash coming in. So you transitioned in about 2013, as you said, you transitioned from selling to focusing on growing your brokerage. I think you said to me in an early conversation that you had about 30 agents at that time.
Cool.
And now in 2021, you have almost 500 agents.
Correct.
And you're the fourth largest office by production for Century 21 in the world. And that's out of 14,250 offices in 86 countries. And I know you know that stat. So congratulations. I'm sure that you're super glad that you made that transition back in 2013. But you continue to make us proud, you and everyone at Century 21 Atria.
Thank you. Thank you.
So before we talk about some of the strategies and tactics that you use to grow your brokerage, I want to talk about any obstacles that you faced during your journey, because as you said, it wasn't always easy. So can you tell me what has been some of your biggest challenges and how you overcame them?
I think a few biggest challenges was, number one is how to become an owner, right? Like, as I mentioned earlier, an owner, to me, it's a complete different business, even though I'm in the same industry, but I was always a salesperson, right? I didn't have to answer to anybody. I think that was a big challenge, is how do you do everything? How do you give value of your company to agents that's working for you, right? Like, to be honest, right now, up to 2014, I actually don't know why agents work for me, right? Like, to me, I have no value at the company, but I had to learn is, how can I give value to people to join Century 21 Atria? And that was one challenge. The second challenge was, like, I'm surrounded by these big brokerages from different brands. Some of the largest brokerages in Toronto are around me within a few minutes drive. But how do I overcome that? I think one of the biggest challenges to me was, how do I make myself different from my competitors? How do I train agents to sell more homes? How do I become an owner to wear multiple hats, from the admin side to the training side to the production side? How do I do that? I think that was a big challenge. And remind you, I was still at a pretty young age in this industry. And I think the next challenge was, why should people join someone when he has no experience? He's pretty young guy. I think that was one of my biggest challenges, I think, to start off the company.
So, I know we're going to talk a lot about the things that you do that, provide value to your agents. So, you talked about some of the challenges that you faced, being a young guy out there and with no experience running a brokerage. How are you going to get agents to join you? How are you going to provide value? How did you overcome some of those obstacles? Like, how did you overcome being young and inexperienced? Did you just kind of keep your head up high and stay focused and, look for ways to provide value?
I think because I started my career as a realtor at a really young age, I think I always learned that it doesn't matter you're young if you're prepared for everything. If you do in-depth research, you do a lot of trainings. Like, I think till now, I like to go to a lot of conferences. I see you a lot of times throughout the year. I travel a lot. It's because I like to learn. And no matter they're a new person into this industry or someone that's very successful, I like to learn from that and absorb the knowledge. I think that from day one when I started working till now, I still have that. But I think it goes back to, like, how do I make that to the next step? I think it looks back to my career as a realtor when I first started. I worked for a company that had about, 15 agents or so. It was my dad's friend. To me, why did I work there? I was working there because it was family friend, but to me, there was no value in that company, right? It was just basically, here's a logo on your business card and you go work for them. I had to look into at a company perspective. If I was a salesperson, what would I want my company to do to help me do that extra transaction? I think that's the key. And the objective of being young to me is, like, you just have to be more prepared, right? Like, I think you have to do more in-depth research. You find your audience, right? You're being a younger gentleman. You will have younger agents, newer agents that want to come in, want to learn from you. Was it difficult to hire the agents that were in the business a lot more experienced? I think people were shocked when they first joined me. It's like, hey, I'm actually in the business longer than you, but even though I was pretty young. So I think that was also a challenge. The other challenge was, you probably know, my company is extremely multicultural, right? I think that was a big challenge is, hey, being a Chinese Canadian in Richmond Hill, Ontario, I didn't want to just hire agents or run a brokerage to cater towards just a Chinese community. To me, as an agent, if they speak English, I should be able to sell them a home, right? Being an owner, if I speak English, you speak English, what's the difference who you work for? I think that's also one thing I'm very proud that we're extremely multicultural at the company.
Great. And we'll talk a little bit about your culture because I think it goes to that. And, you know, it's very interesting because, you know, many times, and we talk, you know, a lot throughout the year, but you're always talking about value. You always talk about how to provide the most value to your agents. And you're always talking about continuous learning too. As you say, you go to everything you possibly can because you want to continue to learn the newest innovations out there, right? You're always looking at doing new things. So that is, I think that's a great trait about you. So let's talk about your growth journey now. What do you think has been some of your key ingredients to your growth?
I think the combination of organic growth and acquisition. In 2014, I did a lot of recruiting. I still do a lot of recruiting today. I think that's just like an agent prospecting. I always tell my agents, if you don't prospect, you can't expect someone to call your phone and say, I want to sell a house. Same thing as the broker owner. You got to prospect every day for recruiting. So I did a lot of organic growth, but I realized really fast that it will take a long time. From 30 agents to, well, back then my goal was to hit 100 within a year or so. I think that will take a very, very long time. And I remember talking to myself, hey, you know what? I want to get to about 300 agents within 5 years window, right? From 30, I want to grow 10 times within 3 to 5 years window. And it's going to take me a long time to do a recruiting one at a time. Well, recruiting has a couple of steps, right? First of all, you have to talk to someone by texting or calling to make sure they're willing to come talk to you. And the second step is you do a recruiting presentation and then all the follow-ups. So hopefully eventually this guy believes in your value and join you. So that whole process, it's not like a one-day thing. It might take months or years. Sometimes I'm still hiring people. So I looked into acquisition. I'm like, I think acquisition is probably the fastest way to grow a business. So that was the main thing. How we've grown so fast was probably through acquisition.
So let's talk more then about acquisitions. Tell us what acquisitions you made throughout the years. And again, we're going from, let's just remind everybody that's watching, that's joining us today. So in 2012, 2013, you're at 30 agents. Now you're at almost 500. So, you know, it was a very quick, you had a very fast growth journey. So tell us what acquisitions you made and why you made them.
I guess the first one, it's not a real acquisition. Maybe I'll share this first one first. To me, it was a brokerage of about 30 agents or so. And I heard rumors they were shutting down. For whatever reason, they were shutting down. And to me, it's like, you know what? I tried to call the owner before you shut down, why don't you sell it to me? But I never done an acquisition. So that didn't work. So what I did was I decided to look at that roster of that brokerage. Who was the leaders of those agents in that company? So I went out to find a couple agents from doing Google research, and I believe these are the agents that are successful. People will look up to them in that company. I targeted those two agents very hard and convinced them to join me. And because of that agent joining me, they actually brought along 10 agents. So to me, that was not a true acquisition, but that was a one way of, I started to look into more real acquisition, where it brings me to 2014. In early 2014, I acquired a company with about 22 agents. And I think all the 22 agents, about 19 of them did transfer over. And 2014, right after, literally like within 2 weeks of that acquisition, another brokerage I acquired was about 25 agents. And all the 25 agents, I think 23 of them actually came over. So those were my first two acquisitions in 2014. And I was scrambling. Remind you, I've only been an owner, real owner, for like a few months now. I'm like, oh, I don't have enough support staff. I don't have, now from 30 agents, I'm up to, I don't know, like 70 agents. Can I handle that myself as an owner? Did I have the tools to support? I didn't have the office space. So that was an interesting transition in time. So I had to learn on the fly and then move forward a couple of years. Now I think we're heading into 2016, end of 2016 or so. I acquired the next brokerage, was about 60 agents. I acquired that brokerage, about 60 agents, and about almost every single one from that brokerage did join us. And throughout the years, I've always been talking to about, like, till now, I'm still probably talking to about 10 to 12 broker owners on a regular basis about acquisition. My biggest acquisition came in late 2018 when it was a brokerage of about 150 agents or so. And of the 150, about 90% of them actually did switch over to our brokerage within 1 week or so. So those were the few acquisition deals that I've done in the last few years.
So, you just mentioned that you talk to a number of brokerage owners on a regular basis, right? You're always looking for the next acquisition. How do you evaluate if a company is a possibility for an acquisition for you? Like, what are you looking for?
I think first thing I look at is what type of culture is this company, right? What type of services do they provide to their agents? The demographics, the age group. I do a lot of research online through Google. I do a lot of research through Instagram, social media to see. You could tell a lot through social media what type of culture this company is. All right. I think number one thing is you got to make sure this owner, you can work with this owner, because through an acquisition, you need this owner to join your brokerage, right? If the leader of that company doesn't join you, the other members will not join. So I think you got to look at that aspect of the culture, the services, the demographics. Is it in line with your company? And is your company better? I have to believe that your company has to be way better. That's a big selling point, obviously. And the next thing is, then you start looking at the number of transactions they do. They look at the fee structures they offer their agents. Is that in line with what you're doing? Because you can't really go acquiring a company if your fee structure is totally opposite ends, right? I think in Toronto, there's a lot of brokerages are what we call discount brokerages, right? Which at Century 20 Atria we're not. So there's no way we could acquire a company with that type of mentality, because those agents will never join you. So I think that's the first step what I look at. So I do a lot of research before I even make that first phone call to talk to these owners, right? Because to me, there's no point in calling this person and he talks to you and you realize everything's not in line. There's really no point to move forward. The other thing I do look at is, do I believe this company have a succession plan? Most of the GTA owners in Toronto, a lot of these brokerages are the age of the owners are getting up there, right? So, but what I've also seen is a lot of these owners, they don't have the second generation that comes in will help them run the company, right? That's something important. Do they have younger managers or management staff that will take over this company? So that's one thing I look at as well. There's really no point to talk to someone if you believe their kid is doing a good job, will take over the company eventually.
Well, and you talked a little bit about researching, doing your research, kind of studying, various brokerages and just understanding, what type, because you're right, you can feel culture from social media, so, just trying to figure out what those acquisition opportunities are. Do you just basically do your research and kind of figure out who's, around you, and then you basically study those brokerages to see if you think they're in line with, with your brokerage? Is that how you find, opportunities with regards to acquisitions?
Yes, all these years I compile a list, right? I started off with my list maybe a few years ago with about 500 brokerages in Toronto, right? It doesn't matter east and west and up north or south in Toronto. I started from that list. I think today now I'm down to about a 70 brokerage list that I am monitoring. Some of them, they're not ready to sell yet, but you keep on monitoring their transactions, anything changes, right? I think those are the opportunities you want to look at. Obviously, all the stuff I mentioned, that's what I monitor on a regular basis. I will look at their sales numbers every single month. I look at the number of agent count they have on a monthly basis. I have my little spreadsheet I look at. I think it's also important. All of a sudden, if this company has 80 agents, and all of a sudden with the last month they lose 10, or they lose 10% of their agents, is there something going on in this company, right? You got to jump on top of it right away. I think that's important to always know who you want to acquire, why you want to acquire, and just, I guess, bottom line is to just make sure you know your competitors, I think.
So basically, it sounds like, you have a very targeted list, and then you almost have a dashboard, like you're checking things on a regular basis, and then you're looking for any inconsistencies that might flag that something's going on. How do you, and I'm sure part of it too is relationship building. Do you have a process specifically to keep in touch with these brokerages? Like, are you scheduling it in your calendar, once every quarter to give them a call, or how do you keep that relationship going?
I'll admit I'm not the best person to do that, but I do use a CRM system, which thankfully from your team provided the CRM system to my company, so we do use that to help me. But yeah, I do use a CRM system. And here's another thing I do is, if I'm not hiring anyone organically this month, that's like saying, hey, Steven, pick up the phone, let's call these people that you want to acquire. That's kind of what I do as well, right? So there's just no set schedule.
I know you're laughing, but you know what? The other thing is that you're always on social media, right? You're always, documenting everything that you're doing, and you're showcasing your culture, you're showcasing you and your team, you're showcasing, the development. So, even if you're not contacting them by telephone, I'm sure that they're seeing you all the time. And so that makes you remain top of mind.
Yes, probably. I think so. Hope so.
So you've gone through a number of acquisitions. What is your biggest challenge or worry when you're acquiring another brokerage? Like, what keeps you up at night when you're making an acquisition?
Okay, so I think there's two parts. First part of an acquisition is, once you acquire that company, there's no guarantee those agents will join you, right? They could join you one day and they leave you the second day. So that entire transitional period, it has to be seamless. It has to be very smooth for everybody to come in, right? Like, I think for example, the realtor's been working for ABC brokerage for the last 7 years. They're used to that style. They're used to everything. Every company has a different style, right? So if they come in, you interfere with their listings are not up properly, their offers are wrong, commissions are not done properly, your admin team is not supporting with them, not communicating. I think they will not like that. They will start shopping around. So you need the entire process of an acquisition to make them feel that nothing actually changed besides the brand name, the logo of on their business card, right? So to me was, I think it's because I started off with a couple of small brokerages. By the time I hit the 150 agents one, that one was a big concern. I remember the day we announced that we're acquiring this company. We know once we make that announcement, other brokerages will be targeting those agents like crazy. The funny thing is, before we even make the announcement with that owner, my own agent called me and texted me and said, called me actually. I remember around 9 o'clock, he calls me, Stephen, why are you and the entire management team at so-and-so brokerage right now? Are you buying this guy out? I looked at the text on my phone, but I can't reply to this text. So apparently another broker, another agent from my company saw me with my whole team walking in. I think that the word started spreading really fast, even though we didn't announce anything. By the time I think 10 o'clock, we announced it, and my entire team was there ready to meet them one-on-one. I brought in about 9 staff, my entire management team. We sat down, people explained why. We did a whole presentation, let them understand the transition's nothing going to change. Every single listing they had, we already have all the documents, everything ready to be changed on the real estate board immediately that day. We had the for sale sign ready. We had the companies ready to install the signs, all their appointments, all the showing instructions was already pre-entered into my system. All they had to do is say, yes, we're joining you. And to me, nothing would have changed. The only thing we would have to wait for a few hours was for the board to transfer their license over. So I think it's very, very important. It's like our first impression, right? I think it's extremely important for that.
Well, and as you said, it's really important to plan out what that transition looks like, right? Because again, as you said, as soon as you make the announcement, then it's like vultures going for those agents. So it's really important to create that protective shield around them, and to have everything ready to be executed right off the bat, right? And I think that's what's the key, what you just said, is to making sure that it becomes a seamless transition to those agents. So, and I'm sure that your experience doing, a couple smaller acquisitions first before you go to the larger acquisition has given you some lessons learned that you can take and apply to that bigger acquisition.
Yes.
So knowing what you know now, what are some words of wisdom that you would give someone if they wanted to acquire another brokerage? So what are some of the things, some of the important things that you learned that you think they should consider?
That's a great question. I think is you got really, you can't buy every single, but you cannot acquire every single company that talks to you. I've actually turned down many deals. Have I signed bad deals? Yes, I didn't know what I was doing at the first couple, but I think you have to learn to walk away from deals, right? Just like when you're telling your clients to put in that offer to purchase that home, you got to learn to walk away, because it's great that you're growing your company, but you have to understand if those agents are coming into your company, will it change your dynamics of your existing brokerages, right? Will it fit into your company? Can you work with them? I think that's very, very important. I think you have to be careful who you work with when you're acquiring a company, right? Is it really what they're telling you? Is that really them? I think that's something I would look at.
Well, and I know that, as you said, with the big acquisition, like you had your management team come in, but I know that you're always focused on making any new agents feel so welcomed at your brokerage, right? You focus on that. You have, meet and greets, whether they're, virtual during, COVID, but I know that you're always focused on making sure that from day one, you're making the best impression. They know who's supporting you, and, they feel comfortable with you as the leadership, as well as the rest of your team.
Mhm.
So let's talk now about some of your organic growth, because
Okay.
since I've known you, and I've known you since 2015, you've always been active in recruiting agents. You always want to attract, you're the biggest ambassador for the Century 21 brand and for your brand overall. So what attracts agents to your brokerage?
I think what really attracts is me. I believe I'm very different from a lot of owners out there. I'm very hands-on. I'm always willing to help agents grow their business. I think with now the amount of agents we have, it's very hard for me to go call every single one and say, hey, can I help you? Can I help you? But till today, I really believe that if you give me a call, send me a quick email, I'm always there to help you, talk to you about your career, how to grow your career. For example, right now, I've been doing this for the last 4 or 5 years, what we call career development. And a few years ago, I started in January to look at business planning for agents. And because we got so big now, I meet every agent by myself, one-on-one for 45 minutes to 60 minutes to an hour. And we started back in January back then. And I didn't finish till May. And that's like halfway through the year, because it takes a long time. There's only so many people you could meet per day. And then I have a really busy schedule. So now I started this week already, right? So like this morning, I already met with 4 of our agents from 9 till noon, basically, before I jumped on this chat. And I think that's one thing, right? That's one important thing, is like people need I hope they see that I'm always here, or my team is always here, to talk about how we can help you grow your business, right? I think the second thing is what attracts people is our culture. I think every brokerage say they have a culture, but what is your culture? I think one thing people can see from my company is I like to invest back into my agents. I'm not, I think I hear a lot of times from other brokers, or a lot of agents say, hey, my broker makes too much money from me. They don't provide me anything. They don't even provide me a lunch to say thank you. Actually, talk about that. Like I heard this recently from one of a support staff that just joined me. She's from a couple other brokerages, and for the last 10 years, she told me none of her boss ever treated her for lunch ever. I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense to me. That's something normal, right? To me, what do I mean by giving back to our agent? I think agents should be rewarded, right? People always reward the top tier guys, but to me, it's no. Everybody, no matter the new guy that got their license today to the guy that makes $1 million a year, I think they all should be rewarded. How? Like I do a lot of events for them pre-COVID, or even now we're trying to do more, right? Like I think we have to show that, hey, not only giving back as a company to give them a culture or events, it's also providing them back what tools we should invest into them, help them grow their business. I think that's important for us to look at as well.
Great. Well, I love that idea about, having those business planning sessions, that one-on-one with your agents every year. Specifically, of course, going into, not a lot of people create business plans. I think they have the intent to create a business plan, but they don't really. And to have that support and that accountability to actually put a business plan in place, to identify what your goals are for the year and to actually put a plan and execute that plan, I think is really tremendous. And I congratulate you for doing that. And I know that I think in the past conversation, you said like you had like 200 spots available to do the one-on-one business planning. So I think that's a great thing to do. So any brokerages out there listening, I think this is a great idea for you to take and implement. So now, what are you doing to attract agents to your business? I know that you're always, on WhatsApp and you're always, connecting through social media. What are you doing these days to attract new agents to your brokerage?
I think I have a different perspective from a lot of broker owners. A lot of broker owners spend a lot of advertising dollars to attract agents. But to me, the number one tool to attract agents is my existing agents to help me recruit, right? If you have a good product, your agents will tell their friends or tell other realtors they should come talk to us, right? I've hired probably in the last 3-4 years, about 10 agents that joined me. It was because their friends that worked at another brokerage said, don't join my brokerage. I think Stephen runs a really brokerage. You should go talk to Stephen. That's a very interesting fact I hear a lot. It's like, why would you not tell your friend to join your company? And you're telling someone to join me, but I don't even know you. But I think that's, to me, is the biggest tool is really your agents, right? If you have a good product, you have a good value, you help. I think agent wants stuff that's very simple in my opinion, right? Agents, no matter you're new or you're experienced, they want guidance to help them how to sell that extra one more deal. How can you generate leads for them? How can you help them grow their business? If I have that product, people will come. I think that's one of the things that we do a lot. For me to do recruiting, I still use social media a lot. I do DM people a lot through social media. I do apologize on here. Sometimes I don't reply because I get so much reply sometimes I just can't see every single message. I do that a lot. I think some traditional methods is cold calling. We do cold calling a lot, right? Some of the methods of people dropping off a deposit check, our manager just going out to say, thank you very much for doing a deal for us. That goes a long way. There's a lot of basic stuff that I think doesn't change. Our business is a face-to-face business, in my opinion, right? So anytime you have a chance to meet a realtor, you need to recruit them. I was at the mall at Yorkdale last week, fixing my phone at TELUS. I basically recruited a guy to come talk to, well, he's not licensed. I recruited him to come talk to us to do a career seminar to learn about it. I think there's always opportunities for you. And I think we have a good product. I have a very good product, I believe. And very important to make sure they know about your social media, because I think that talks a lot about my company's culture.
Yeah, well, it definitely showcases your culture. And as they say in marketing, word of mouth is the best form of advertising. So as you said, you're always looking at ways to provide value to your agents. Your agents see that value that you're providing. And then, of course, that's basically they start to refer their friends and family to your brokerage. So once that lead comes in, let's just say that, one of your agents have referred another agent to, talk to you. How do you get them to that point where you have that opportunity to have a meeting to actually them joining your brokerage? Like what's important during that journey?
So in terms of the actual presentation, you're saying, I guess?
Yes. Yeah.
I think your presentation is not one size fits all, right? You have your basic core of what do you provide? Who are you? Your identity, all that stuff. But your presentation has to cater towards that individual, right? Just like when you're selling a house, every seller, every buyer, it has different personalities. Our presentation is really, we have a presentation I created from A to Z, right? But you have to understand what a new agent, you technically know what a new agent always wants. They want training, they want support. They want a company that's always there helping them close transactions or how to handle that objection on the first deal. But that's in my opinion, a newer agent's presentation is pretty much similar, always pretty straightforward. If the other agents, the agents that say, you know what, I'm only doing 4 deals a year, but I want to go to another company to do 10 deals a year. Or the guys that are doing 100 deals a year, how can I create a team? How can I do 200 deals? Those are the ones that you really have to understand what are they looking for You need to understand why are they considered leaving their brokerage. In my opinion, for those brokers or those agents, it's not an easy decision. Usually, it's not like a one-day decision. It might take months or years. I've hired people that took a couple of years before they joined me. But you have to understand what they want and present it to them. I think that's important. I do a lot of my recruiting presentation myself. I can't say I do every single one. I try to do every single one. It's because I think it's important for them to know who I am. Even if I can't do the presentation, I usually try to drop into the meeting and say hi in a meeting room or stuff like that. Or even through Zoom, I'll drop into the Zoom in my car, say, hey, hello. I think they need to know who am I, right? What I think is very important is the follow-up after that, right? Like if I'm not there, make sure I make that phone call or send them a message and say, hey, thank you very much for coming in. So I think that's kind of the direction.
Well, that's great. And I think that I think that having that personal touch is so important. And I think that, I'm sure that they can feel like we all can feel your passion and love for what you do in your brokerage and your, the realtors that work for you. We can really kind of feel that passion from you. And speaking about passion, so we talked a little bit about culture, right? And anybody that, is listening, if you haven't been following Stephen Chow, please do on Instagram, Facebook. The culture of your brokerage really comes through in your social media channels. So how important do you think is culture in retaining your existing agents as well as attracting new agents to your brokerage?
Oh, extremely important, because I think a lot of agents, what I hear is they're just a number in a big brokerage. Who are they? I'll be honest, I don't recognize all 500 people we hire, especially now with everybody wearing a mask. We don't even know how they look like. I'm guilty of that. But I believe that if people are happy working in a company, it's retention, in my opinion. If they're happy working at your company, they feel that vibe from you, they will tell their family and friends to join you. And more importantly, I think what one part where people miss out a lot is if these agents are happy working in your company and they get to meet other coworkers and they don't feel lonely, it's a family to them. People always say culture. What is a culture, right? A culture is not an owner saying, this is my culture. You need your team to buy into that culture, right? Think about it. If agent A is so happy that they met agent B in this company, if agent A leaves, would they really leave? That's like a breakup with not only with the company, but also with their friends, right? I think a lot of companies or a lot of agents, we hear that, hey, they're just out of brokerage. They have no friends. They have no coworkers. Well, they have coworkers. They just don't know them. To them is, I have no relationship to this company. So I try to create a lot of events, right? Or actually, there's a hashtag we use a lot called Atria Life, or at least I use that a lot. Right? We try to create a culture by creating a lot of events, such as like some of the stuff that we do is people find it silly, find it pathetic. Maybe I've had owners, like really successful owners, saying, "No, that company is a joke what they're doing." But to me, it's like maybe that's why my sales number is higher than yours by so much. Like I kind of say we give back to our agents, like reward them. Like for the past 20 months of COVID, there's a lot of things we couldn't do. So what we've been doing at the beginning of COVID, we did online karaoke singing. You were part of that, right? We did a lip sync contest. We played games online, right? We started to do meet and greets. One thing was really difficult for us when we hire new people. Back then, when we hire new people, we host small little parties or little events, right? We did ping pong events. We did a pool hall. We rented a pool hall to play some events. We did a few times ping pong. I think that was fun. People get loose. After a couple of beers, people tend to open up. Everybody becomes friendlier. But because of COVID, it was very hard to bring that culture to our agents. So I started to do a lot of meet and greets in the parking lot, right? Through social distancing, wear a mask. The weather was nice in the summer in Toronto. We did that. We did trainings outside, but other stuff that we started to do in fact is like, you know what, when everything was case counts were a little bit lower, I did a sailing event. We rewarded our top 21 agents on a yacht sailing in the summer, right? I invited the top all their agents that got a mid-year award from the mid-year outstanding award, every single one we invited them to go to a golf course to have lunch with me, right? So I tried everything on that menu at the golf course. So every time I met 10 people, we didn't want it with 10 or 12, we didn't want 20, 30 people coming up. Because if I have 30 agents showing up to one event, I lose the connection of talking to them. I lose the connection of, as you know, a table could be pretty long. It's hard to talk to the guy at the end. When you have 10 people, everybody's willing to open up a little bit, talk more. So those are some of the stuff that we did. Last year, I think we did a very cool, very different virtual Christmas party. If you've never seen it, go to our YouTube page. I think it's pretty different from a lot of companies that we did. Pre-COVID, we do a lot of different events. We did like, I don't know, we do challenges out there, right? We did the Kiki challenge. We did the, I don't remember the Drake one, the dancing one. We did that challenge, right?
Yes.
There's all these videos online for you guys to watch on YouTube. I think that creates a culture, right? People meet friends. Some of these are quite silly, right? We did karaoke contests before, right? I dressed up as Michael Jackson, not the nicest looking Michael Jackson out there, but right? We tried. But to me, that's a culture. If people feel part of the family, they want to stay, right? Because I think sales is important, but are they happy working with us? Can we please everyone? Probably not. But I think that's kind of that's who I am, I think.
Well,
So
I think
I went on and on.
no, that's good. And when you talk about Atria life, right? As to me, if I was to describe Atria life, I would say, doing kind of fun things, like things that put a smile on your face. And sure, they might be quirky or they might be different, but they put a smile on your face, right? And the other thing I think that you demonstrate is that it's okay to be yourself, right? You don't have to be a certain way and stand a certain way, but just like be yourself, have fun, let go. That's what I think everyone needs. And during COVID, that was even more important because we were all kind of fearful. So to make someone laugh is so great, I think. So I loved your Christmas party. It was so great watching that virtually.
Thank you.
So I know culture is a big part of what you do. I also know that training is also really important to you, again, in keeping your existing agents, making them as productive as possible. Because as you say, you're always looking at how an agent can go from 5 transactions to 10 transactions. And also, I'm sure that all the training you do attracts new agents. So what are you doing? Like, what training do you provide? Because I know I see it all the time on social media. You're always posting like a weekly schedule. So talk a little bit about training.
So we basically do training 5 days a week, right? We've always been doing trainings all these years. I think now because of COVID, it's more online, so it's a lot easier for us to have speakers just jump on a Zoom to do a training, or even for ourselves. But looking back in 2016, we've actually already started to do a lot of our trainings virtually. We did a lot of recording. So when COVID hit, when everyone said I'm doing Zoom or doing videos, to me it's nothing special. I've been doing that, which I would probably say 90% of our trainings were still in person. Now we do, for the past 2 years, we probably do 5 trainings per week. Mondays is always about a technology training. Tuesday is usually hosted by myself or lawyers to talk about some relevant stuff in our industry. That's probably catered towards everybody in our company, no matter your new or experienced. Wednesday and Thursdays are more catered towards the newer agents or less experienced, newer into the industry. It's more hands-on about prospecting for Wednesday and Thursdays. And Fridays, we actually have one of our manager, Ali, that does what we call Atria Minutes. It's a very short segment. It's about new technologies, new tools, new things that we think you guys should know about. For example, whatever tools that just came out, hey, we think you guys should look into this. We read this article online. That's basically our minimum trainings Monday till Friday, right? And from time to time, we'll throw in, we have guest speakers coming in for developers, lawyers, but minimum, to me, it's 5 trainings a week. Every year we do prospecting boot camp. I host it myself. Sometimes people say, hey, do you have experience as a trainer? I could tell you, if you asked me the same question 2 years ago, I don't. I'm not a trainer. I'm not a real estate coach, but I like to share my experience, my journey, what I hear from my agents, to teach my agents how to sell homes in the real world, right? So I do the prospecting boot camp myself. It's usually 3 full days. We do it 3 times a year. in Q1, summer and fall, we usually do it at that. We're actually launching a new program next year. The idea is 3 full days as well. And now doing the new construction world. So we're dividing our course into 2. Half of it will be catered towards the resale side and getting listings. The other side is going to be, hey, how can we help our agents sell more new developments in Toronto, right? I think that's a big part of our business in Toronto. We're actually putting together a 3 to 4 days full training manual, which we're going to be announcing it in January to our agents. And the idea is to do it 3 times a year as well. And we have all our trainings. We have a website, what we call Atria Learning Academy. All the videos we do, it's there. Sometimes I just do videos about trainings, about different topics, 20 minutes. I don't need an audience. I just record myself and just go talking for like 20 minutes, right? So I think we offer a lot. I hear a lot from other agents. They join a brokerage. They say they have trainings. They say they have their trainings, but there is no training. I'm telling you, I have trainings. It's posted live on our page, so there's really not for us to hide it. It's there, right? We don't do it in December or January. That's kind of like my holiday, but we do it 10 months of the year.
That's okay, because they have campus21.tv
Yes,
and C21 University in January, February, so they're never left out.
Perfect. You could do the training for me.
Excellent. We talked a little bit about the tips that you would give someone if they were looking at an acquisition for their brokerage. What are some of the tips that you would give brokerage owners if they want to recruit more agents to their business? Like if someone's kind of being a little bit stagnant and they haven't really been actively recruiting, what are some things that you, like some of the key top 3 tips you'd give them?
You're telling me to give away my secret.
Okay, give away a couple.
Okay, I think the number one thing is, the number one tip is you guys do it yourself. You can't rely on your staff to do it. You can't rely on your management team to do it. If you're the leader, you don't want to do recruiting, no one's going to follow you and do it, right? It's your one's company. If you don't want to do it, no one's going to be there. I think that's the biggest tip I would give you. You have to do it on your own, right? I guess if I have to give you a second tip is understand what's your value. Don't say you have this value. You gotta really back it up. It's very easy for someone to realize you don't offer that stuff after they join, right? So there's no point in saying you have all this and you don't. So you have to understand what is your value and you have to execute it, or else your retention is it's not going to exist.
I think that's a great tip. And I think it's a great tip for, a 2022 resolution. If you haven't done it already, make sure you kind of know what your value proposition is, right? And not only be clear on what value you provide agents, but also, as you say, execute on that value, right? Making sure that they know that is there for them and that you continue to provide value. We talked a little bit about, the last 18 months and how you've done some different things because of some of the, restrictions we've been operating in lately. How have you changed, or have you changed how you manage your brokerage and engage with your agents? Like, has that shifted? Are you going back to some of the more traditional, as you say, in-person meetings? Is it a hybrid? What is this looking like now?
I think it's going to be a hybrid mode, right? I still prefer to do a lot more in face-to-face, but I think in Toronto, there's still a lot of restrictions and the numbers are rising. So it's a challenge, right? I think the biggest challenge for us is the people that joined our company since COVID started, right? I honestly don't think they feel the culture of my company because they haven't even seen me, right? They might have only seen me on a computer screen. I think that's been a challenge. But how do we get that message to them? This is who we are. So we're really looking forward to our Christmas party that's coming up in a couple of weeks from now. Obviously, with the restrictions, we can't host a full-blown party, but because there's restrictions on numbers. But I really think it's been challenging, but we have to adapt. I think as a business owner, I think one thing I've learned of COVID is you cannot sit around and wait. I think you gotta really be active and see how can you look for all the things that can happen and analyze what can you do if this happens. What you have to be proactive, get ready for it. You can't just say, you know what, cross my fingers and pray nothing happens to me. But it's been challenging. But I think we're thankful as an industry. I believe that I think our industry has been very successful. I think we're very thankful for that. But it's been challenging when you had staff that were sick from COVID. You had staff that were scared of working. The other biggest challenge for us was I was very strict on our COVID protocols, right? I technically shut down the office the whole time of COVID until Thanksgiving. I opened it back up. Did people like that? No, I know we got a lot of pushback, but to me was that's managing, in my opinion, because one of my things what I looked at was if one of my staff, the support staff, is sick, in my opinion, the entire company is shut down. If I get sick, the entire company, to a point, everybody has to work from home. Then that's a challenge. How you can do that? So I think, in general, those are stuff you have to manage. I think during COVID, I think, right?
Great.
The last 18 months.
Well, when we started, discussing when you transitioned from selling to, really kind of running and your brokerage back in 2013, we're in 2021. So it hasn't even been 10 years. It's been 8 years. You've been on quite the journey during that time. What keeps you focused and motivated and determined? Because if I was going to describe you, I would say, focused, determined, relentless. How do you keep up your drive and your passion and your focus to move forward?
I think a lot of people say they don't like losing. They don't like to be second. I can tell you, I really hate being second. I think everybody in my office knows about that. My staff knows that. Every time these awards comes up from Century 21 Canada, from the international, I get really upset if I don't move up. Like, if you asked me the same question 5 years ago, I was like, you know what? I just wanted to make it into the top 100 at Century 21. Within 5-6 years from being, I don't know where I was, like 5,000 ranking in the country or something in the world. Right? But now, as you said, we're number 4 in the world. But I hate that number. I've been stuck at that number for a year and a half. This year, I thought I'm doing amazing. I'm still stuck at number 4. So that motivates me a lot, right? Like, but to me, it's like, people say they don't like losing. They don't like to be second. I'm not even second. I'm number 4, actually, okay, in the world. So that really sucks. But to me, it's, you can't just say, daydream and say, I want to go up. But what can you do? To me, it's very simple. You've got to, in our industry, it's very simple. Sell more homes, right? That's how you move up your rankings. How do I sell more homes at Atria? Provide better tools for my agents. What can I do? So all that to me is, I think that number motivates me every day. Like I think I shared this with you. I stare at these numbers every single day, right? And if you ask me today, down to the dollar, how far back I am from number 1, I actually could tell you that number because I stare at it every day, and looking at it motivates me because it really bothers me. No, but I think people say I think we all want to provide to our family, right? I think that's number 1 goal, right? You want to focus, you want to be motivated to provide to your family, right? But one thing I've learned from my dad, my mom, and actually my grandfather, is you have to be hardworking, right? I think that's one of the biggest characteristics I personally think I have is I'm extremely hardworking. And I really, the type of guy, I won't stop until I reach something, right? That's me, but I don't know. Did I answer you?
You did. You're always going for gold, right? Always going for gold. So
yeah,
perfect
and
brand.
4 is not in bronze, you know?
Well, it's funny because when I can go on Instagram and I can see your post and go, oh, global numbers are out.
See, like in Canada, we're number 2, but I still want to be number 1. I don't want to be number 2, right?
So, Stephen, just as we wrap up, we just have a couple more questions left. But knowing what you know now, if you could go back and send a message to your young self, what message would that be?
If you decide to become a broker owner, stop selling real estate immediately. You cannot do both, I think, right? I don't think it's possible. No matter how good you are, you can only service your agents or service your buyers itself. It's not possible.
Right. So if you do both, you're kind of doing it halfway, right? You're not giving it your all. So that's a great message. And what is, as we wrap up here, what is the biggest challenge you've ever faced in your life that ended up being a blessing in disguise?
I think I was too young. I'm around 20. I was making pretty good money as a realtor, right? And the obstacles I faced at 20 was I just got obstacle. I spend a lot of money. I you're 20, your friends are, none of your friends really have money. You go out, you pay for everything. To me, money was easy as a realtor. I got to a point, I bought a fancy car. I remember I bought my first BMW when I was 20. You start spending money like crazy because you think making money is easy, I should say, right? I got to a point around 2021 is like, you know what? Oh, I'm not selling anymore. No one's buying from me. I was in debt. I'll be honest with you, I was in a lot of debt. I maxed out my credit cards. I had a car, BMW that I had to pay. I think I was like 1 or 2 months default. I bought my first property. To me I turned it around really fast, probably within a year, and realized that money is not easy. And at that moment, I realized that, you know what, whatever my family, my parents and my dad and my grandfather taught me, money doesn't fall from the sky. Your business doesn't fall from the sky. You want to be successful. You want to live a certain lifestyle. You want to provide your family. You got to work. You got to be hardworking. So to me, I've been through that stage that I really had negative balance in my bank account, right? Like some people think, actually a lot of people think I come from a rich family. No, my parents immigrated in the 70s, and my mom and dad worked 3 jobs to raise me and my sister. They're not rich family, right? So to people, like, I really started from, I was there. Don't tell me you have no money, then go work. So I think that was, to me, it's like, I'm glad it happened at 20, not now. So, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I think it's a great lesson learned that you got to work hard to see the success, and you really have done that. So thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. How can people get a hold of you, Stephen, if they want to connect with you? What's the best way?
Best way is Instagram, right? You can follow my company at C21 Atria, or follow my account at brokerage.c21, and just follow it there, or visit my website. If you want to sell your company, give me a call too, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. You are just the best ambassador for the Century 21 brand. You make us all proud. You have come such a far way, and we just continue to support you and cheer you as you move forward in your career. And, congratulations to all of your management team and all of your realtors at C21 Atria. You're all doing just an amazing job. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. A lot is thanks to you, Chiyoko. Thank you very much for you and your team at head office.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for taking time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.